Hello everybody, my name is Spelios, and welcome to episode 2 of My Understanding, Still Incomplete. In this episode we're going to be talking a bit about Spence Hood and what it was like to film an interview with him and a little about him as a person. I'm going to be talking about becoming desensitized to performing, and at the end we're going to have a little theoretical treat and talk about re-harmonization. If you haven't seen it yet, I'd highly recommend you go and watch the first episode of this series. It just got started. So that first episode is going to set the scene for what I want this series to be and what I want the other series I'm going to be talking about to be. In it, I talk about collaborating with Evan DeVries, and I also introduce some of the bands that I'm in the Seattle area. But for now, let's just get right into it. Lately, I've been busy putting together the first episode of Seattle Artist Spotlight. It's a series that features local Seattle musicians and artists. I am interviewing local artists, and then I'm also making a mini cover music video of one of their songs that I really like. So the first artist that I covered in this series is Spence Hood. If you haven't seen that video, I'd once again highly recommend that you go and watch it, because I think it's really funny. I think it feels really natural and spontaneous, and it's really fun. I really wanted to pick Spence Hood first because I know that he's a real hustler in the Seattle scene, and we're pretty good friends. Spence has one of the finest pop male vocals I've heard in the Seattle scene. He's super fun and quirky to work with and to record that interview with. And he's really clear-minded when it comes to the frequency at which he puts out music videos, the way he pushes for new shows and events on a regular basis, and I thought it was a pretty good idea to have him be the first featured artist in the Seattle Artist Spotlight. I want to do this series on a monthly basis. I think that'll give me plenty of time to edit and really make a quality product. And I think once a month is also spread out enough that people can kind of, drift away from the series, come back into it, and, you won't have a million episodes to catch up on. And just for a fun little behind the scenes, here's a small look at what Spence does when he thinks he's not being filmed.
You think I'm asking? What? I have this on camera. This time's different, Spence.
You guys are...
Yeah, both of them are right.
Nice!
Because it's different. So this is a chord. You don't pull on it.
Okay.
We're trying it.
Okay.
We're trying 30%.
Sure.
This is the level that we're going to be talking at each other. Right?
Sure!
Next, I want to talk about how it is to become desensitized to performing on a regular basis. When I first arrived in Seattle, I was extremely grateful and happy and ecstatic for any chance I got to play, whether it was an open mic, whether it was anything. Yeah, just the chance to perform in front of people. I was so excited. There was something so magical about it. I sometimes get asked if I still get stage fright. I always get asked what I'm feeling on stage, whether it is some kind of negative emotion or a fearful emotion. I feel like it's the exact opposite. It feels like the magic's kind of being drained out of it. Instead of feeling like, oh, I have a show coming up, this is going to be amazing, I'm gonna do this and this to prepare, I'm gonna be so ready, it's gonna be so amazing. Now I kind of have it in my head that I'm like, oh, I have a gig at the beginning of this week, the end of this week, mid next week, oh, another one that week, oh, that one's gonna be an interesting show. It's like there's so many that I'm becoming too used to it. And that's not to say that I'm not happy or excited or energetic when I am performing. I think it's more of an internal psychological thing where I'm trying to remember how it once felt to be that pumped. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I think one aspect of it is I'm a lot more confident on stage. And I think it's also really good to go into a show, very level-headed. It's really hard to control, but one of the worst feelings as a musician is to go up on stage and freeze up and not be able to perform. And I haven't had that happen, but I think where I am right now, on the opposite side of the spectrum, I think it's better than freezing up. But I'm also curious, I know there's going to be other musicians watching this video. How do you all feel about performing on a regular basis? Do you feel like it's kind of become more of a chore or more of a job and less enthralling than it used to be? As I said, I'm not 100% sure that it's like a negative thing. I actually kind of think it's a positive thing, because now, since more low-key shows and things like that aren't as engaging to me, it makes me want to go out and seek bigger, more exciting opportunities, bigger venues, more people, not that that's everything, playing with other bands on bills that I've never heard of. I think there's a lot of good to come out of it. But like I said, I want your thoughts, because I want to know that I'm not the only one that's experiencing this. Or maybe I am. No, probably a low chance of that. Transitioning to a more straight-ahead musical topic, re-harmonization. I find that when I hang out with musicians, one of the topics we always talk about is reharmonizing, making a chord progression sound different, or turn a chord progression on its head and make it function differently. I think there's something to be said for someone who can take this song and evoke a completely different emotion and tell a completely different story through different chords. And it's really amazing, because a lot of the time when you're reharmonizing, you want to keep the melody the same. So it's not like you're really changing the arc of the song. You're just kind of changing the way that that arc is being told, or maybe even flipping the context of the arc on its head and telling a completely different story. So now I want to throw a couple of different ideas out to musicians out there. This is going to be beginner to intermediate stuff, but even if you're an advanced player, I might be reinforcing something that you've been thinking about recently. So let's discuss it. Onto the piano. Alright, so excuse me for the world's jankiest setup right here. When I have enough money, I will be getting one of those more convenient tripod things that this can go on and it can hang above, and it, doesn't look like this. What I've come to realize recently is reharmonization, and just harmonization in general, is all about your goals. If I want to resolve on a note, then I will choose harmony that's appropriate for that. If I want to create tension on this note and release it on this note, I make the harmony do that. The harmony is a vessel to convey meaning and is a way to tell the story in an interesting way. Let's say I have a melody, and that melody justifies these chords. C major 7, F major 7, G add 9, to C major 7. Each of those chords has a different function which contributes to the entirety of the chord progression. So the first chord, the C major 7, that's our home chord. That feels restful. That feels at home. If we want our home chord to be altered, that can have an interesting effect. The first beginning of the chord progression is going to be the same, but the last chord I'm going to end on, instead of a C major 7, is going to be a C augmented major 7, 9. It's going to sound like this. Now it sounds like James Bond has just returned from a mission to discover that his girlfriend is missing. It doesn't sound as restful, even though it's still under the function of home. Let's take another example. The G chord, the G add 9 chord, is the dominant chord. It has a dominant function. Dominant function meaning that it really wants to go home. So, here's what that sounds like again. We can replace that G chord with something else that still wants to go back to C, something that serves the dominant function, but isn't that G chord. Well, what really wants to go to C? How about the chord that's a half step above the C? So how about a D flat major 7? Here's what that would sound like. So, now that dominant function is being replaced with something that serves a similar function, but is a completely different chord. Let's take one more example. The G chord serves a dominant function in the key of C major because G is a perfect fifth away from C. A perfect fifth is specifically the distance of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 half steps away. G is 7 half steps away from C. Therefore, if you make a major chord off of that fifth, you know that that chord is going to go very well to the chord that you started from, that C major in this case. So this is a 5-to-1 relationship, we call it, or a dominant to tonic function. Now if we take that idea and expand it to the F, the second chord in our chord progression, what do we get? So we still go from C to F, but now we have this intermediate chord between those two chords that serves as kind of a preparation to get onto the F. Said in another way, instead of just going C to F, we can go C blank F, and that will have a different sound, but it'll still serve the same function in the long run. So to find the 5 chord of F, to have that 5-to-1, 5 being something and 1 being F in this case, we're going to go up 7 half steps from F. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's a C. Okay, so C major goes to F. Well, C major is already the chord preceding F. So here's what we do. We're going to make the C major chord have a little more darkness, a little more tension. You can make it a dominant 7th chord by adding another third on top of the chord, a minor third. So if we go up 3 half steps from the 5th of the chord, so G, 1, 2, 3. Now, this is C7. C major 7 was this, and C7 is this. We know that C7 now is going to go really well to F major 7. So, here's our chord progression. So now, we have this kind of jazzy chord before that F chord that leads us into the F chord, that kind of expands the chord progression a little bit, kind of tells a longer story. So let's combine all 3 modifications, alterations, reharmonizations that we've done up until this point. So we just started with 3 basic ordinary chords, and by the end of this we have something that's kind of foreign. As you do more experimentation on your own, you start to realize how 5-to-1s normally sound, how tritone substitutions sound, how all these other different modifications feel. And that's really where the lesson is. The lesson of reharmonization is, how do you start? How do you end? What do you want to do in the middle of all that? And there are billions, trillions, infinite combinations of chords that you can do to go from one chord to another, and they all have different flavors. Find the flavors that you like the best, and have fun with it. This has been Seven Sky Spelios for the 2nd episode of Music, My Understanding Still Incomplete. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Be sure to check out the interview and mini music video of Foothills by Spence Hood. And yeah, I'll see you in the next episode of Music. Have a good one.